No, New York City, particularly Manhattan, is the borough that most people dream of living in. And with that said, if you want a spacious home, chances are you're going to be looking at a co-op. And once again, Darius Solomon joins us. He's the associate broker with Prudential Douglas Elliman. He's going to talk about the ins and outs of buying a co-op. How you feeling, buddy?
Great, thanks.
All right, good to see you.
Oh,
yeah.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. So, you know, if you're not talking about buying a house in New York City, obviously you have two options, condo, co-op.
Yes.
And there's some really differences. Can you...
Well, the immediate differences are that condominium is buying real property, whereas buying a co-op is buying shares of a corporation. And typically in the benefits that come with a condo is real property. There's no board approval required. Basically, if you have the money, you can buy it. Right. And then it's easy to sublet. There are no restrictions on using it. In a cooperative, there are slightly higher requirements to get in, essentially, and you will have some restrictions going forwards, being able to sublet, flexibility, but most importantly is the fact that you'll get more for your dollar.
Size.
Exactly.
Size matters in this case, and you're getting more for your...
More for your dollar square foot, and that's the most important thing. Is when people are looking for space, you need to be able to. You want to look for the best that you can get.
Absolutely. I'm laughing, but it wasn't really that funny. Tell us about the down payments. Why do you require a larger down payment?
Well, if you look at the difference with a condominium, typically it's 10% down.
Right.
With a cooperative, it can be 20, 25% or more. It depends. The average being about 20%. So if you're, let's say, looking at your average one-bedroom purchase, you have to take into account that the difference here is that you'll probably need to be able to put down at least $120,000 in that case of a $600,000 apartment, which is about 20%. And then there are some things that you'll have to be prepared for post-purchase. Co-op boards will typically look at your finances overall, and they'll want to see that after you've put down the down payment that you potentially have anywhere from 1 to 2 years of maintenance and mortgage in account. So they're looking to see that you have funds post-purchase. You need to take all these into account when looking at co-op boards because everyone's a little bit different.
This isn't your basic credit check. This is
not your basic credit check
because you're becoming a partner in a corporation.
Exactly,
right? Okay.
and that's the, so when you're looking out there, it's important that if you're working on your own or if you're working with a broker, that they be very aware of what your financial capabilities are when you're going out there and looking.
Okay, let's talk about some of the tips that you said. First, you don't want us to fall in love with why? Well, I want to love where I live.
I know, and it's important to we all want to love what we live in, and I say that cautiously is be prepared that you might walk in some apartments where you're not capable of meeting those requirements of the board. And so I say, again, some checking out to see if this building will fit your financial scenario is important. But don't fall in love because you don't know. There's still always a process, and you have to take into account board approval, etc.
Right, and you don't want to be too disappointed. But as you said before, you've got to be prepared to disclose deep financial information.
A fair amount of financial information. Typically, they're going to be looking at the very least 2 years of your tax returns. They're going to be looking at your annual income, and you're really going to have to show what your assets and liquid assets are so that they get a general picture for you. Now, this will all be done in a board package, which you have to anticipate typically. Again, you have to look at time frames. The average purchase of a cooperative takes anywhere between 30 to 90 days by the time you close, and that's from the point where you've negotiated an acceptance.
Okay, so you've got some time too. All right. Okay, so don't pack your stuff.
Don't pack your stuff yet. I mean, these are all taken into account in the process of looking for a cooperative, and most people, I think, start to get the idea. New York City is really one of the few places you really find it's 80% co-op versus 20% condo.
Right.
So. Again, looking back at the average dollar per square foot, the benefit of looking at a cooperative, although it carries extra work to get to the point of purchasing it, is that when we look at the average condominium is about 11.
Making sense of the national and local real estate markets is not easy. While on the national level, we may see one thing that almost never reflects what's happening in the New York City market. So here to explain that sometimes confusing real estate process is Darius Solomon, associate broker for Prudential Douglas Elliman. Darius, thank you for explaining this because good morning. You say it's really pretty simple when you break it down, but it's really true. You look at a rise in the national market, and then in New York City, what's happening?
It's always been a little bit different, and it's never that simple. There's so much data going on and so many different views of what's happening. But when we look at the national market itself, yes, it had a hard year. We saw about an 11% decrease in the year of the average sales price, which is a considerable drop. Now, as we've moved forward, What's interesting to note now is that in the past month, the month of April, on the national level, now we're not talking about New York City itself, we saw a 16% increase now in sales for the last month. Yet another confusing point is that the average, the median sales price went down by 11%. So if we're looking at the national markets, yes, we had a lot of speculation about what was happening in the market, increased inventory over the year. It took much longer to sell the average property. Right now, we probably saw new home builders in the national market starting to reduce prices to entice people to come in and buy up some of that excess inventory, and there have also been a lot of incentives. We're also moving into springtime, which is typically a cyclical month where, season where we see a lot of people coming back out to the market. So there's yet some things to see as we move forward. We have had fairly low interest rates, historically low for a long time. That's also cut off some of the speculation about what the future brings.
But this market is so unusual, so it's never really a reflection of what's happening on the national level, is it?
No, Manhattan itself, although never immune from the rest of the market, has definitely remained sheltered. Now, again, when we're looking at the nationals, when we're looking at the national sales, there have been some interesting breakups in how the different regions have sold. And most importantly, if we look at the South, saw a 28% increase in sales. The West, an 8% increase as well. Northeast, 4%. And the Midwest actually saw a slight decline in 4%. So as we move forward, there have been speculation about the subprime market itself as well. Now, there's not been a direct relation as of yet to increased inventory in the market for the subprime issues which have arisen. But looking forward, there is potential that it might increase some inventory. On the good side is that the net immediate effect is that banks are somewhat holding back the lax lending habits which happened over the past few years. So over time, it'll bring people to purchasing in a zone which is a little bit more realistic, and potentially as time evolves, we'll see less foreclosures as there have been increased ones.
What about a boost in consumer confidence? Is that
we definitely see that there's always been a slight correlation between the boost in consumer, big ticket spending and average sales. Now, again, we are moving into the springtime. You do see people spending a little bit more money on cars, big ticket items as the summer comes along. And they have tied, it was a modest increase, about 1%. But again, that ties into the whole process of the market on the national level. They feel like it's coming slowly to a stabilized point. There's no direct, we still have yet to see how it evolves.
So it's a wait and see.
It is a wait and see.
It's a wait and see.
Now, the Manhattan market is a whole different ball
game, right? We'll talk about that on another time. And I thank you so much, Darius. Always good to have you in. Thanks for the insight. And speaking